I actually think I might cry. They look so beautiful.
I'm shitting myself. I'm shitting myself. I'm throwing up. I'm standing up in the dark.
Look so beautiful.
I could literally take a shit on the floor. I'm freaking out.
I'm literally shaking.
Colin's hand is injured.
Colin has a bandage on his fucking hand.
The bandage. Look at his hand. Look at his hand. Look at his hand. I'm literally crying.
I'm literally losing my mind. I'm shitting right here, right now.
Hello everyone and welcome back to What a Barb, another emergency podcast, but this time let's make it festive. I'm Obs, it's Boxing Day and I'm joined by my nearest and dearest, Lecky Beans and Veg, our third emergency podcast in like 2 weeks. How are we doing?
This was supposed to be our holiday break. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's been nice to receive content, but it hasn't been much of a break.
Yeah, it's been great. I told my parents, because I'm at my parents' today, I was like, I'm really sorry, but this is extenuating circumstances.
These are unprecedented times.
Does Boxing Day, do you guys have Boxing Day in
No.
American list?
No.
Oh. Do you have the day off work?
I got the day off of work because it snowed here and my boss doesn't like driving in the snow. Yeah.
By luck, I also have today off, so
in the UK, it's a public holiday, so we get today off every year.
There's a few versions where it's come from, but one theory is that on Boxing Day, the member of the aristocracy would gather up presents for their tenants and they would take them out into
their hovels.
Yeah, so like Daphne will be there today. She'll be packing her little boxes, heading out into Cliverton and distributing like she does.
Distributing to the pig people.
Oh, cute.
And that's where they think it came from. I don't know how true that is. Wiki it, someone.
Okay, before we officially get started, do you know the movie Meet Me in St. Louis?
Yes.
I love it.
I love that movie too, but I hadn't watched it in a while, and so my mom and I have been going and watching a lot of Christmas movies before the holidays, and we watched it last night. And do you remember the Halloween scene?
That's my favorite part of the movie.
What?
I love how dark the Halloween scene is.
The movie holds up, but the Halloween shit was crazy. Basically, the kids all get dressed up, and then they're given a bag of flour, and they have to run up to people in the neighborhood, knock on the door, throw the flour in their face and say, "I hate you," whoever, and then come back and be like, "I killed them." And then they take furniture off of their porches and throw it into a bonfire. It's some wild shit.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Depends who your neighbour is.
Still a good movie, though. Very good movie.
Judy Garland.
I love Judy Garland. She's my favorite.
But yeah, so apologies if our audio is a little bit wobbly. As Veg said, these are extenuating circumstances. And what brings us together this happy Boxing Day? Well, I think we all know. Yesterday was absolute chaos in the fandom. God. America, I think you were all supposed to be fast asleep when this all happened. But for us in Europe, it was like middle of the day when out of nowhere, suddenly stills just started appearing out of nowhere. No one could seem to trace where they were from. They were just like hitting us one after the other. It was like, it was like we'd get the Cantonese still and we'd be like, where's it coming from? Where's it coming from? And then we'd get like a France still and absolute chaos. All these out of nowhere, all of these stills. And it became apparent that they were maybe being leaked quite innocently by a TV updating website. So we got 5 stills that appeared without any official release, any official confirmation. And of course, we were in instant disarray. And in this episode, we're going to break down those stills, share our theories, share some of the fan reaction, and just have a chat. But of course, the day wasn't through with us because we were all waiting in anticipation for America to properly wake up to see what was going to happen. We had been anticipating something for Christmas Day, maybe a clip, that elusive clip that continues to elude. But when America did wake up, we got another treat, our final Christmas treat, and that was the very first season 3 poster, a teaser poster, a debut poster, it's been referred to. Guys, it was chaos, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're a lot more subdued now with like a lot of Christmas dinner mulling over in our bellies from yesterday. But yeah, we, at the time, as our voice notes will attest, we were absolutely manic.
So in the moment, we were all completely reeling. But now we've had a few hours to sit with it. And so I thought we'd get you on a call before you all hop off for New Year and break down our thoughts a little bit. As you can imagine, trying to record an emergency episode around Christmas isn't the easiest. We're doing our best. We've had a few hours of sleep to try and recover from the absolute chaos that was Christmas Day, but shall we get into it? Now, Lecky, when the 5 stills dropped, you were able to figure out which episode each was from.
Well, that's because you reminded me to check the metadata, because we remembered.
Check the metadata. I saw a different fandom figure out the episodes because they searched the metadata. And I was like, Lecky, when we get things...
That's right, on Twitter. And we screenshotted it. And we were like, keep this in mind for the future. That is true.
I don't know what metadata is. Can you inform me?
Yeah, so basically by reviewing the image files, we were able to learn not only who took the photos, but also which episodes they came from. So that was nice.
Yeah, that was a core piece of the puzzle. So shall we go chronologically? Should we start with 301 maybe?
Yep.
So our first still, one of the first ones we were hit with, we have Cantony, Kate and Anthony. In episode 1, Anthony is reaching over. He has Kate in a loving embrace. Lecky, what is going on?
What strikes me is that Kate's abdomen is hidden in both this photo and the next one we're going to talk about. And the conspiracy theorist in me has jumped to the conclusion that she may be pregnant with no real proof. So there's that.
Tinfoil hat straight on.
Yeah, it looks like she's kind of wearing a dressing gown. So maybe this is an early morning look. May not be the case, but kind of has those vibes.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Penelope's dressing gown, that pink one where it has kind of like the frills around the edge.
Yeah, you're right.
But in the next one we're going to talk about, it looks like the fabrics they're using are kind of thick, but this looks like a dressing gown to me.
Yeah.
So we know this is from 301, and you said it kind of looks like a dressing gown potentially. I was wondering if this is going to be one of the opening moments of the episode and thus the season, because if we look back to 201, I know we didn't have Simon, but we did have Daphne, and one of the very first things we saw in 201 was Daphne, and it was like this very sweet handing over of the baton.
Yeah. And that's how Jonathan Bailey has described it in a couple of interviews, as well as handing over the baton.
So where we had Daphne arriving at Bridgerton House and going in and us following her on that journey, maybe this is a moment with the last season's leads before we transition into Colin's story. So it would make sense for then that to be the early morning just before the chaos of the presentation begins.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And in addition to the stills and the poster, there was an article published by Shondaland with an interview with various different cast members. So we'll sprinkle the quotes from there throughout this episode. But in the Shondaland article, they spoke to both Simone Ashley and Jonathan Bailey. And with Simone Ashley, she said that Kate's always had a lot of strength in her vulnerability and her softness as well as her fierceness. But she's very humbled by her position as Viscountess and is honoured to be part of it. And Simone went on to say that she thinks Kate just wants to depend on the family as much as they depend on her, so really bringing her in as a Bridgerton. And Jonathan Bailey continued that Anthony and Kate are always going to be there as Viscount and Viscountess, so Cantony fans will be rejoicing at the news. But they have so much that they're experiencing themselves as a couple, and that they're taking the enjoyment in the independence that they never got to have before in their enemies to lovers storyline. And he said that this season it's exciting to explore his life post-marriage. So Cantony fans, a lovely little Christmas present for you there. But who have we got next? Further along in 301, though not too far along, because we think we have another part at the beginning of the episode as the tradition continues at the season opening with the family chaos as one of the daughters prepares for their debut. We had Daphne, we had Eloise, now it is Francesca's turn. So in this still, we have Eloise, Benedict, Kate, Gregory, Violet, Anthony, and a feather-holding Hyacinth all standing in the Bridgerton house drawing room. It's really weird, like a few of them look endeared and the rest look very bewildered.
Yeah, like Kate is smiling.
Yeah, like Kate's very lovingly looking on. The rest are like, what? I don't know if this is maybe like mid-reaction to something and like not everyone has fully reacted to it.
Yeah, maybe.
But noticeably absent from this, obviously, is our lovely Colin and our Francesca. And we think that this is the Bridgertons just before they leave the house. As we've seen from the leaks at Ranger's house, they do all pile outside and greet Colin when he arrives. So we assume that this is the scene just before that happens. Any other theories about what might be going on?
Oh, I thought that this could be a little funny moment for the show where like Francesca's getting ready and she's like walking out and they're like, oh, Fran, you look so different. Or something like that.
That would be really funny, you know.
Like a tongue-in-cheek reference to the fact that the actress has changed.
I'd like that. That would be really funny.
Yeah.
If Francesca's like sat there in her thing like, I'm ready, and they all look at her for a second and they're like, there's just something different different about you. That's exactly what I want this scene to be, you know?
Yeah.
That would be funny.
She's like playing at the piano, but you can't see her face. And then she kind of like turns toward the family, and then they all kind of look puzzled just for a second.
Right.
Kate's none the wiser because she's like, I've never bloody met Francesca for more than 2 seconds last season. This could be anybody.
That's true.
But the other thing is like, I think with Fran, it could be a little bit different. You know, for Daphne and Eloise, they both were like running to get them ready and everything. And maybe the Bridgertons are all running around. And Fran's like, I'm in here, I'm ready.
And she's ready.
Yeah, and they all come in and she's just like playing the piano, and then they're like, Fran.
I love that.
Oh, like she was ready way before any of them.
Yeah, yeah.
That's hilarious.
They're all looking for her, like, where the hell is she? Where the hell is she? And she's like,
Over here. They just hear the piano and then they walk in. And they're like, oh, you look so different. There's something different about you.
okay, now that's exactly what I want the scene to be. I was thinking, originally, I wondered if they were looking at her and then heard commotion outside and went to the window and saw that it was Colin. And that's what the moment is, they're like hearing commotion. But I've thought about it and I agree. And I think it's a Fran moment because I think this would be a really fun way to establish her character a little bit more.
Especially because Hyacinth is holding the presentation feather.
Yes. Yeah, she's like ready to go. And it, like each debut has the flavour of the character. So Daphne's had the grace with the family being chaotic around her. Eloise didn't want to come out. And this would be a nice way for us to establish a little bit more about Francesca and her quirks maybe. And in the article that Shondaland posted, Hannah Dodd, the new actress for Francesca, did talk about her character. And she said, I think she's an introvert, but she can have these beautiful one-on-ones with her family, the people she's grown up with and she's comfortable with. So she can have that Bridgerton banter, the spark they all have. But when she goes into the ton, she behaves slightly differently to the others. She's a bit intimidated. She doesn't need outward validation and prefers to be on a one-on-one level talking about things she really cares about. So I wondered if there was something that this moment would have of that, where we see her spark, because she's very reserved but very witty.
Snarkiness.
And she kind of holds those moments. And I wonder if we're going to see that a little bit, maybe, because it does look as if she sat at the piano. If you look at their gazes, they're kind of looking down. So I like what being said, though, that she's ready waiting for them and they're going to look at her and be like, you look really different. That's what I'm going with.
That would be funny.
Now, we have seen many of these costumes at the Rangers leaks, but one person we couldn't really clearly see in those leaks who managed to elude the cameras was Eloise. I think we have a tiny glimpse of her head in those leaks, but this is our first time seeing her presentation day outfit. Veg, how's she looking?
Wow, quite interesting actually, because she is wearing bows, and it's interesting this has happened post
breakup,
post fallout with Penelope, because she's definitely drawing from her wardrobe here.
So like when you wear your boyfriend's jumper after he's breaking up with you because you still miss the smell of them.
Yeah, exactly. So you could theorise that this is sort of, you know, her glow down.
Oh, we've all been there.
Or her bow down, if you like. Suggesting that maybe her series is next, but Lucky, I think you're still of the view it's Benedict, right?
On the Ben train.
I'm still on the Benedict train, but this is this adds more to the mystery.
Yeah, it definitely
I think we're going to be debating this until season 3 comes out.
It's definitely interesting with the big bow.
Looking at this now, I feel like her dress is sort of matronly, and I wonder if that is on purpose so that she doesn't attract men from the town, because as we know, she doesn't want to get married.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is a decision on her part.
Interesting.
To like make her seem less appealing to members of the town. And it also might be something too where Eloise is trying to make Fran shine more, you know, by like sort of dimming her own light as well.
Oh.
And she definitely doesn't want to be in the spotlight on a day like this.
Right.
So she's happy to retreat.
Yeah.
But you know, the Eloise fans, she's wearing plants. She can't escape her fate eventually, can she? But of course, there is one Bridgerton missing. The one we're all wanting to see. The one, the only, Lecky. Who do we have in our next still from 302? We're jumping ahead an episode. Who have you got for us?
So Obs has dubbed this picture Unicolin because Colin's waistcoat has a unicorn on it. This term has stuck with me. I love it, and I'll probably be using it a lot, so apologies.
Stop trying to make Unicolin happen, Lecky. And Lek, where is he?
So Unicolin is standing in the Bridgerton drawing room. He's looking very moody. He's holding a copy of Lady Whistledown. He doesn't look very happy about it.
But Polin fans, we're very happy about it. And why is that, Veg? How is our boy looking?
He has quite a whimsical, fanciful waistcoat covered with all sorts of animals. So there's the aforementioned unicorn, there's a monkey, there's an owl, a betta fish, and there's a little octopus right in the middle. And there's notably a lot of butterflies and also, we think, a bee. So very interesting. And also, this is a big moment, no cravat in sight. So everyone, well done. The campaigning is paid off.
We're all winners.
Everyone signed the petition and we've freed the neck. So this look definitely screams Traveller Colin to me. And it does remind me a little bit of the some say tiger, some say zebra stripe pattern that we saw Colin wearing in his little Tudum clip.
Yeah.
Also, so Luke has touched on this in the article that Shondaland posted. He said, Colin thinks he's really cool, but to the rest of his family, they think he's scruffy.
Aww.
But this season, the costume team has been so great in letting his looks kind of progress as we go throughout the show. He's gradually been able to develop his style, and we've very carefully picked the times and scenes where he can showcase that a little bit. His influence is from his travels, so that's kind of canon. That's exciting. And then he said, and now he's really had a full gap year experience, gap year, and he's enjoyed himself and learned some new things that he's into. So this is so great, and this is potentially what is giving him his swagger. You know, he's kind of felt he's found his place a bit, potentially.
Comes back a pirate, becomes a zoologist.
And I do have to go to dinner.
Okay, Veg, we'll touch base with you later on, my love. This is what happens when you're having to record an emergency episode during the holidays.
Guys, enjoy the emergency, and you might hear from me later talking about other outfits. Okay, bye.
Thank you for that, Veg. So that's how he's looking. I mean, how are we all feeling, guys?
The waistcoat has been like a big conversation piece within the fandom itself. Like, so many people are like talking about the different animals and stuff on it.
Like, what does it mean, the interpretation?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we've got what Luke said as well, offering his side.
I personally don't think there's too much to read into like the animals specifically. I think it symbolizes traveling, yada yada yada.
Yeah, I agree.
Although I did say to you guys that I do think it's hilarious because he's not stepped a toe outside of Europe, but he's fully
He looks like he's been to like South America, all these other Africa.
I'm like, darling, you've been to France and Spain, you've been to Malaga. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I love him for it.
So just to talk about like the way his wardrobe develops through the season, Veg kind of touched on this, but what interests me is that in the Tudum still his hair is much more slicked back. And Beans, you've touched on this, I believe in our Tudum episode, that Penelope, her hair becomes a lot softer over the course of the first 2 episodes. And it looks like we're seeing a similar hair journey with Colin. And I think that we're also going to see this costuming journey with Colin, where here we have this very whimsical kind of in-your-face, I'm a pirate, I'm a traveler type costuming for him in episode 1 and 2. But then over the course of the season, it'll slightly get more refined.
Yeah.
So then we get those faint tiger zebra stripes. So I feel like his wardrobe is presenting the image of a worldly traveler. But as the season goes on, it becomes more subtle as he learns to find his place in the ton, maybe.
And I think it's an interesting comment from Luke, what he said, that the team were mindful. He was very particular with the words he said. They were mindful of the times and scenes that his wardrobe correlates to. So what we're going to see is that this is telling a story, especially with this sort of traveler notion. And like Lecky, you were saying, it'll be interesting as we get more stills, because these are from the first couple of episodes, to how that changes and how that morphs. And the story beats that correlates to, you know, whether his traveling correlates to his writing, which I think is something that we're all going to touch on later. We're all very excited for.
Yeah.
Whether it relates to his protectiveness, whether it relates to his imaginative side, his creative side.
Right.
I also thought it was very sweet, but very potent that Luke also said that Colin thinks he's cool, but his family thinks he's scruffy. And this reminds me of the Rangers leak that we saw when like Anthony, he's come back and we're like, oh my God, look at this pirate. And Anthony like picks his thing up and he's like looking at it very disdainfully, like, where have you just come from? And I think this is interesting because we've been thinking a lot about the swagger and the confidence and how Colin believes it. But we've noticed before that he's always been overlooked by his family. It's been a recurring theme. Is this going to be something that when he returns is going to be a continuing theme where he knows who he is and he believes who he is, but his family is still not at the point of affirming him yet, and that's the journey they need to go on?
Yeah.
Another thing, if we look at his hand, I mean, he's missing a core Regency accessory, which we'll be seeing a little bit later in the episode, so keep an eye on that one. But what he does have on his right hand is a ring, and this has caused all sorts of theories in the fandom. I will say that we first saw the glimpse of a ring on his hand in January 2023 in the This Morning leaks.
Yeah.
You could just about catch it. This was a much clearer picture of it, though. There's been speculation it could be Lord Ledger's. It is very hard to tell. We think on first sight that it's not Lord Ledger's. It doesn't look as ornate, does it?
Lord Ledger's is too square.
Yeah.
And this one's more round, the gem.
I will say as well that I think both Benedict and Anthony have notably worn rings in previous seasons, and it was always an anomaly that Colin didn't. And it could be like a familial signet ring. It could be an heirloom, something like that. But yeah, his ring is on his hand and something else will be soon. But Beans, any other comments about how he's looking? I could talk about this all day long.
So not just how he's looking, but I do want to comment on just wardrobe in general. I think that Luke Newton's comments on his wardrobe just shows how important the costuming has become. The costuming itself is showing a journey within the character.
Yeah, exactly.
And those choices are fairly intentional. And also, I love that Luke Newton gave the costuming team
the recognition.
They really do deserve a lot of credit because the boy looks beautiful. Like, he looks so good. It's been pretty much a 10 out of 10 for me in terms of costuming for Luke Newton that we've seen thus far.
I think every time we get more Colin, it adds more to the puzzle, because I think I've always had an understanding of Penelope's journey with her costuming. I've always had an idea of what that would be. With Colin, it was always strange to me how we had him arrive as the pirate.
Yeah.
And then later we'd see him very buttoned up, and I was like, I understand there's a story being told, but like, I'm not sure what it is. And I think these are putting the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah.
But obviously we have to focus on the most important accessory of all, the absolute pièce de résistance, his expression.
Man, does he know how to smolder. Luke Newton's got the smolder down. Like, because he's done a few smolders in the past.
We have seen him sprinkled before, haven't we? Yeah. You've made us a collage or two.
Yeah.
He might be looking good, but he isn't looking happy.
Yeah.
As we said, he is brooding, he is glowering. We have the Lady Whistledown in his hand. Any theories on what is going on? Beans.
I personally think that he has just read Lady Whistledown because Spencer is talking about Colin a lot in Whistledown in the book.
She always referred to him a lot.
Yeah. And so I don't necessarily think it's him suspecting Eloise.
Do you think this is just him pissed off?
Yeah. I think he read something in there that he didn't like, and that was about him or something like that. And then he just, I feel like he's putting down the paper like exasperated, because Colin never really paid attention to Whistledown.
But then I think he retreated away from it as well. I think he had a passing interest, got burnt by it, and hasn't. And I think this is one of the reasons why he's never connected it, because he's retreated so far from it.
But also because there wasn't really anything about him in there until Marina, and then there was nothing again. And so now it's going to be like this uptick in writing about how Colin Bridgerton probably returned back to town, or the town, I mean. And also maybe like she wrote something about Penelope. I think it's more of like, he's annoyed by something that he read.
So you mentioned that some people believe that he's talking to Eloise here, and that he suspects that maybe Eloise, as Lady Whistledown, wrote something negative that upset him, just to touch on that theory. But I do feel like other people believe that Penelope is here, and this is the setup for him injuring his hand. I don't think Penelope is here, because I don't think he would look that upset. Even if he was reading about, you know, his words last season, I don't think he would look that upset. He looks upset.
I think there's two big possibilities for the context of the scene. I think because we know he's going to injure his hand in this episode, right?
Yeah.
So I think initially people's theories were, if Penelope is in the room, it's not that he's annoyed at her because of what he's read in Whistledown, because obviously he wouldn't connect that with her writing it. Maybe he's just gone out of the room, has the Whistledown in his hand, comes back and has caught her reading his journal, and that's when he cuts his hand. But I feel like that's a bit of I think that's a bit convoluted to like have the whistle down.
Yeah.
Also follow his eye line.
Mm-hmm.
He's like looking almost up.
Mm-hmm.
He's not looking at Penelope unless she's like levitating.
Right. I think he's looking at a window or just like looking at something. You know,
maybe.
when you read something and then you look up to think?
I feel like someone's in the room with him. I don't think it's Penelope.
I think it's Eloise.
Maybe it's Antony. Maybe Antony's like, look what she fucking wrote about you, bitch.
I think it's Eloise.
Eloise isn't that tall.
That's the corner she always sits. She always sits and reads in that corner. I think
We have a what a Barb disagreement.
my theories for the scene is that this is at 3:02, right? Which is quite early in the story for this kind of tension, but we're going with it. We're jumping straight in. I wonder if we know that Pen continues to fail spectacularly. I wonder if she's written about that failing in Whistledown because it was seen publicly and she had to write it, or maybe she's just disparaging herself. But she's written something harsh about herself in Whistledown. And I think that he does suspect that Whistledown is Eloise. I think we had the build up to that in season 2.
Yeah.
And I think it's such an important part of the book story. And I think this is touching into the scene that happens in the book where he really angrily confronts her.
Oh, and by this point, he probably already knows about the falling out between Penelope and Eloise. So there is a reason for his anger.
And he's probably thinking that isn't helping my case either. And that's the context is, I know you've fallen out. This horrible thing has been published. Why are you getting at her constantly? And we're going to see him, because he's going to be in protective mode anyway, because he's fucked up recently. He's still trying to, make amends. And I think he's confronting her, being like, why are you writing this? But if that is the context for the scene, then first of all, that's propelling that storyline very quickly, him confronting her about writing.
Yeah.
This could maybe be where he isn't outrightly accusing her. He's just making a very pointed statement like he did in 208, being like, isn't it interesting that this keeps being written about her? But I was thinking a lot about if they do go down this route, that is this going to be part of the widening gap that we've heard in the Penelope story? Will Eloise be angry that Pen is accidentally turning Colin against her? Because if he's jumping to the defense of Penelope and is accusing his sister and is angry at his sister, is that going to cause a gap between Eloise and Colin, and then in turn intensify the anger that Eloise feels against Penelope?
Yeah.
It just feels so... I do think he is confronting Eloise, but it feels very early for confrontation.
I don't think he is.
Okay, well, I initially thought it was Eloise, but then I just looked at his eye line and I was thinking...
Yeah, it is quite high.
This could be wrong too, but we've touched in past episodes about his relationship with Antony. He also needs to show that he is a man, and that Antony, he needs to stop treating him like a child and start treating him as a brother. So I wonder if this is one of those early scenes where we see that kind of like that father-son dynamic instead of the brotherly connection.
Yeah, it could be Ben and Antony making like quips at Colin because of something that Whistledown said, and he just like looks at them like, you guys.
Yeah.
It's just, for me, like, I do think that the initial confrontation is going to happen with Eloise, but I think that based on his eyeline alone, no other deciding factors, nothing else.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's definitely not Pen.
It's definitely, in that case, he'd be like looking straight down, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think he's probably talking to one of the brothers or both of the brothers. And I think that maybe, new theory popped up in my head. Maybe he comes in to chat with them, and then Antony is like, oh, read this. Like, Whistledown has a lot to say about you, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And then they like start making fun of him a little bit, and then he gives them that look like...
Yeah.
Or maybe Antony chastises him for hanging around with Pen.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but he's given Antony that very look before.
It'd be easy to dismiss it as just like anger, but I think Luke Newton's acting is very nuanced, and there's almost... I don't know, there's something else in it.
It's annoyance.
But his body language is maybe ever slightly retreating. I don't know.
Or a little bit of wounded pride or something, maybe.
Yes. That coupled with whatever's been written and whatever's been said to him. I like your theory that it's a brother. We're not at the stage in episode 2 for this to explode as it would with a big showdown with Eloise.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you might have converted me. I was so firmly on the Eloise train, but Beans, you win me over. You've won my heart. You've won my mind.
I think the only reason is because he has this like internal confidence that maybe isn't translated to his family. Like they see it as kind of like,
within his family dynamics.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
His costuming here is very relaxed, but he's got his like fancy new waistcoat on.
Yeah.
And if he's thinking like, I look really cool, this is who I am, and they're like, look at the state of you.
Yeah.
And they're chastising him about what he's wearing and making fun of him, and that's part of his journey within his family.
Exactly. And I don't think that he'd be in a room cravatless with Pen.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
I mean, not in the first 2 episodes, but yeah, hopefully soon.
And we have to set up the problems that are going to continue throughout the seasons.
That's why I like both the Eloise theory and like the Antony theory, because those are both conflicts that need to be resolved. But I do feel like the conflict between Colin and Antony is more relevant to his story than just him, you know, noticing that Eloise is upset with Pen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think a lot of his personal development as a character is tied in with his place in the family and his relationship with Antony.
Yeah.
But speaking of his place in the family, Lecky, we were talking about this, weren't we? It is interesting that he definitely seems at home in these photos. So does this put an end to the theory that he's moved out? Do we think we're going to get a Rangers-bound Colin instead of him finding a home in Bloomsbury? What are you thinking?
Sorry, Bloomsbury fans. I think that he is still living at home.
For now. Early episodes as well.
It just makes sense. It's easier for them to film that way.
Yeah.
And also this way we might get Penelope, you know, sneaking in, sneaking out.
Yes.
I'm excited by this. Sorry.
The housing market's not that great anyway, Colin. Don't worry, babe. So we were all extremely excited at the sight of our lovely Colin. But Colin, we can't have you without our lovely Pen. So shall we jump into our next still? I remember when this one dropped and I sent it to you and I was like screaming.
We were freaking out.
And bear in mind, for you guys, it was so early in the morning on Christmas Day. It was like, what is happening?
I was in a 1-bedroom apartment on the couch whispering, like whisper shouting. Yeah, that was a memorable moment.
I got up in the dark and was pacing around my room just like whisper screaming. It was
My favourite thing about yesterday is like you had those Christmas collages done in like a second.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's pure adrenaline, it's pure adrenaline. Because next up in episode 2, we have what we will henceforth be referring to as Osterly Polin, just to keep them all straight in our heads. And Beans will be explaining shortly why we're going to call it Osterly Polin in a minute or two. But oh my gosh, we have another Polin still, and wow, it's a beauty. Lecky, what is going on?
So I can hear Veg screaming from the abyss about Penelope's sadly empty dance card here because she is standing next to Colin with a sadly empty dance card at a ball.
Yeah, I noticed the hand and then the dance card. I was like, what the fuck?
Just like 201, she's like in the same position and her dance card is sadly still empty. But they are standing inches apart.
Centimeters.
Millimeters, Lecky. The width of a
Oz
hair.
made a hilarious meme where in very tiny font she wrote out, I am a gentleman, and put it in the tiny gap between them. But yeah, they're standing barely apart.
As all good friends would.
Some say this photo gives Lord and Lady Whistledown vibes, but I feel like there's kind of a melancholy feeling to this scene. To me, I think there's just like a slight...
Really?
Yeah, in Colin's expression here, I think that they are looking at Debling's entrance here, and there's just like a faint glimmer of like worry, or what will become worry in Colin's eyes. Obviously, I'm reading far too much into it, but I think this might be Debling's introduction here. And regarding the dance card, I think the reason that Colin hasn't signed her dance card is because Pen has either directly or indirectly asked him not to. Like, either she said, please don't dance with me, or more likely, Colin is now taking her mission to find a husband seriously, and because he's serious about making amends.
Yeah, this isn't the fake dating trope that we saw with Saphne.
Right.
And just to contextualize the whole image, so we have Pen and Colin standing mere millimeters apart. I honestly think it's like you could get a single hair through there.
Threaded.
You can feel their body heat. That's how close they are.
I have to give absolute props to both Nick and Newts here, because that is the most well executed, not touching lean. I can't even believe how perfectly that's been timed and incredible.
Yeah, amazing.
Have you guys ever had that experience with somebody that like you like or have been attracted to, where you're like walking or standing next to each other and they're like so close you can feel their presence, but like not close enough for anybody else to notice? Even though everybody else notices because you're standing so fucking close to each other. That's what this is.
And that's the beauty of the Regency, isn't it? There is as much energy in the not touching but almost touching than there is in the actual contact.
I love it.
And what we have here, they're leaning together. As Lecky said, they are looking at something, and we will dig into that. But they are definitely at a ball. And Beans, this ball is all too familiar to us. Where are we?
Yes. So they are in Osterley, baby.
They are indeed.
Yep.
So they're in Osterley Park and House, which we talked about in our previous group.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called What a Pirate, and we'll link it in the show notes if you haven't caught that. So Osterley Park, this was filmed in, was it mid-July or late July?
It was one of the very first things they filmed. It was the first set leaks we had.
Very early on. And now we can officially confirm that the blur was Colin.
Yes.
You've been vindicated.
Yes, and you know what? There's a swoop to his hair. There's a squared off sideburn. I'm just saying.
You've been vindicated, girl.
Lucky you occasionally know a Colin when you see him. At least 5 out of 10 times you have correctly guessed our main character.
Yeah, and so I think we were wondering if it was going to be Danbury's ball or another one.
Or a Violet's birthday.
Violet's birthday. I think we might be leaning towards Violet's birthday, right? Because this is in 302.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh.
And why is that, Obs?
Well, before we jump into that, Veg, how are they both looking? Because it's very pertinent to what we'll be discussing about Osterley.
Colin is looking extremely dapper in a very dark blue or almost black suit. And the neck isn't freed, but as we know, we get some of those moments, so free the neck campaigners. You're still doing a great job, still love your babes. But this cravat is not actually as suffocating as we've seen before with Colin, so that's progress anyway. And his hair is a tiny little bit piratey, and it falls in very romantic coils. Very, very much romantic lead energy. It's the Colin swoop, as we are affectionately calling it. And obviously our gentleman Colin is wearing a very nice waistcoat, but hold that thought for just a moment, because what else does he have but the number one must-have accessory of the 1815 social season? Guys, this is not a drill. His hand is in a bandage. Guys, this is very exciting. Never before has a fandom been so delighted to see their main character with an injury. The boy has had his hand cut open. He's had it delicately put back together. Oh, we couldn't be more thrilled. As for our lovely, wonderful Miss Penelope, she's in a stunning Bridgerton blue. The fabric is covered in tiny little sequins arranged in the shape of stars. It appears that there are constellations stitched into the fabric. Oh, love it. She's accessorising the dress with a beautiful starry necklace and earring set. And oh my god, this is an absolute tragedy. Will the suffering never end? Her dance card is empty again. It's still empty. Will she never see salvation, poor gal. So Pen is sporting a smoky eye and elaborate curled hairdo, with one main curl falling down her face as the rest of her hair's pulled back, and then there are a few sort of delicately twirled baby curls. Now, fans might recognise Pen's hair and makeup here. This is actually the look that Nick was sporting way back in July 2022 during the season 3 filming announcement video. And just another detail to make you swoon. So I mentioned Colin's vest earlier. His waistcoat, well, his vest perfectly matches the colour of Penelope's dress here. Oh, are Jen and Colin's tailor conspiring to get these two coordinated? Or have their wardrobe choices just finally been blessed by the costuming gods? I don't know, but either way, we are absolutely beside ourselves at the sight of them. I screamed. We all screamed. We all scream for Polin.
So it's interesting that Colin's waistcoat matches the color of Penelope's dress. We saw something similar in the This Morning leak, and it caused a lot of people to speculate that the reason they were coordinating was because they were maybe engaged, or at least together at the time. And Obs, I know you wanted Enchanted Polin to not be together because it was more tragically funny if Colin did keep accidentally matching Pen's dresses. Well, from this new still, it looks like that is the case, and from very early on in the story, too. It's a very sweet detail to show that they are meant to be together, a visual tie connecting them even if within the story they believe they are not going to be together at the time. It's also a lovely touch because we've had 2 seasons of them in contrasting colors with Colin's blues and Penelope's yellows, and I just love seeing how they're going on individual costuming journeys that reflect their own stories but that they are still deeply entwined with one another. This dress, this constellation dress, just also reminds me of the song Yellow and the references to stars, etc. in that song. So I really do hope we get it.
Veg, you mentioned there that Pen has almost a celestial vibe to her outfit. So thank you to the fans who were picking up on those tiny details, because if you look carefully, you can see that it's she's covered in stars and constellations, very beautiful. But in this setup, so we have what we saw at Osterley, right? We've always known that Osterley was going to be this beautiful purple ball. We theorised that it would be like Hastings, like in the courtyard, and that is where they have filmed it. So it is like a courtyard ballroom. And we always knew that it had this very classical themed, whimsical, beautiful, like flowers billowing everywhere. But what you can see in this still is that behind Pen, the flowers form a crescent moon. And near her, there's another one. The one next to her was another phase of the moon, a half moon in this way. And so fans have been developing the theory that maybe Osterley has some sort of moon phases ball or some sort of heaven themed ball. So after reading this on Reddit, I went back to the Osterley leaks where, because you get a very nice panorama of the set, you can see quite clearly the set. And when you actually go back and look at the set leaks, you can actually see the other moon phases in the flowers.
And we didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, the reason I think we didn't notice, I feel like we were so close. And the camera from one of the announcements said the word moon on it when it came to the colouring codes. And I just thought it was like the colouring code of the programming for the cinematography, for the colour grading. But it seems this is the moon ball. The reason you couldn't see on the original leaks was because the phases that you can see were like the full moon and then the slightly waxing and slightly waning moon, but they still looked kind of full. So we wouldn't have picked them up as being as the phases.
So that clip, that footage is from that ball then?
Is from the moon ball. So we knew it was 302. There you go. So it's all connected from the ball.
Oh my God. I just I'm so excited. Just briefly, I'm so excited to when we finally watch it, to go back and look at the crumbs and be like, what was there that we missed, you know?
This is it, because we've had those leaks for well over a year.
Yeah. We never noticed.
One tiny new still, we've uncovered so much more, and it's just the pieces coming together is so beautiful.
Yes.
So it definitely feels like we have like a lunar themed ball, which I think is connected to the ideas of dreams and stars and fantasy, which is just perfectly on theme.
And phases. We all go through phases.
And phases and growth and development.
Transformation.
Which is so polycoded. That being said, we had speculated at one point that it was Violet's birthday ball, alluding to Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. I was looking at the jar of flowers that are in the background. I think they might have violets in the jars. Is that a bit tenuous? Has the sun literally set on the Violet's birthday ball?
We studied some photos of violets. I don't know. It kind of looks like violets. Maybe Violet's birthday has a theme to it. Who knows?
You know what? Violet is entering a new phase of her life with her garden being ploughed.
Oh, God.
But let's get to the pollen of it all. So obviously we have them at ball, which we love to see, but we can learn so much about the story and the transformation of their story from page to screen from this, because we're in episode 2. We're at this celestial ball. They're together.
She's wearing blue in episode
She's
2.
Blue,
that's way earlier than we thought. My God. Amazing.
From the Osterley leaks, we can actually place where they're physically standing, can't we? We can sense what thanks to the phase of the moon being in order, we can place where they're standing. So Lecky, they have a very interesting look on both their faces, which you're going to talk about in a second, but where do we think they might be looking towards?
Yeah, they're looking like either across the ball or out to the entrance, but I do think that they're watching Debling enter here, so them looking towards the entrance to me would make sense.
So we're theorising that they've maybe seen Debling for the first time. Perhaps another suitor. Maybe it's not him.
This is making me wonder too, though, if they're looking at Debling, which I also agree with this theory. I'm wondering if he appears earlier in the episode and then they figure out who he is, whatever.
And gets fussed around a little bit because he attracts a lot of attention, they say.
Yeah, and then he comes in and Colin and Pen are like, that's the guy. And Colin's like,
you know what's funny is that they're standing where we saw Luke in the leaks, the blurry Luke. He's literally standing right there.
Vindicated. I am selfish. I am wrong. I am right. I swear I'm right. I swear I knew it.
I was just looking at the Osterley picture and I was like, oh my God, he was right there where they're standing in this picture.
What is hilarious is, are we going to be like this throughout the entire season, just pausing every second? Oh my God, they had this and we saw. It's like, just watch the fucking show. Now they could just be looking at any random suitor, any random guy. They're looking for a husband for Pen, but there is something in their expressions which made us think Debling.
She looks intrigued.
Yes, so if you look at Pen, no, they are both leaning towards each other, but they're also looking out. But Pen is standing quite straight, whereas Colin's definitely doing the lean. And if you see Pen, she's looking with almost intrigue. I mean, this is Whistledown anyway. She's always very curious, especially if there's a new face in town. But she's looking almost interested, a little bit open.
Yeah, I feel like she's intrigued. She's interested. She is paying attention. Something about Colin. I mean, I think he's looking at Debling and that he is secretly starting to worry, but doesn't even realize that he's like worried about what is happening.
Yeah.
To play into the romantic comedy, it would be funny if she's looking at Debling and he's looking at somebody else. Like, oh, she'll never fall for that guy, you know?
She's looking at Dankworth or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Because I was just about to mention Dankworth, because there might be like a montage where Pen is with every guy that's wrong for her, and like Colin is unknowingly getting smug because he's like, of course, he's not right for you, he's not right for you, he's not right for you. And his wife brain is quietly like, thank fuck he's not right for you, because I want to be with you. But his wife brain hasn't quite made it to the front yet. But when he sees Debling, I wonder if there's something in him that's like, shit.
Yeah, that's what I think this expression is, to be honest.
Because we said it, Luke Newton, he is fantastic at those like micro emotions and portraying that subtlety. And I think Colin will want to get on board with it, but there's something
guarded.
Yes. That it's going to unravel. But if his expression is looking a little bit wounded, then that is nothing to say about his hand, because as Veg said, I've never been happier to see someone I care about injured. The boy has his bandage. Now, if you've read the book, this will have been one of the first things you probably saw like we did and freaked out about completely.
If you read the book, or if you've just absorbed the book like I have.
By osmosis.
Never read a word.
Because book fans, you know what this means. It alludes to a very famous scene in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton where Penelope is over at Bridgerton House and she starts reading Colin's journals, kind of by accident, but she's curious too. Colin finds her, gets very fluttered, very annoyed at her reading his journals, and in the midst of the chaos of him packing away his things, he slices open his hand, and there's a very sweet moment in the books where it was very funny as well, because Pen's like, babe, think about how expensive this carpet is. Like, you've got enough blood. Think about the carpet.
Yeah.
Where she tends to him, and they have this very sweet moment of vulnerability and care.
Before they argue again and Pen storms out.
And it really resonates with Colin, and it's a huge moment in their story. And we're getting it. This is so exciting.
Well, maybe.
Well, he's definitely hurting his hand somehow. That's all I care about.
I really want to see this scene from the book, but I also feel like it's also possible that he may have injured his hand a different way, and this is just kind of a nod to the book. So I mean, just don't get too attached. I believe that it happens, but in my mind is just shocked that we're getting maybe so many Polin scenes in one episode, because like that means in addition to all the stills we've received, all the Polin moments that we've seen snapshots of, there might be another one where they have this scene from the book. That's crazy.
Because if we think Market Polin was from episode 2, the Window Pen was from episode 2, the Moonlight Polin was from episode 2, we've got a bunch from here. But Lecky, I keep trying to convince you, they are the main characters. I know you've had 21 minutes with them on screen and you've made many episodes about it, but
maybe they combine it. Maybe he cuts his hand at the market. I don't know. We'll see.
I will say the distance between their hands is so hot. Like, I love the way their hands are positioned.
And it's beautifully framed, isn't it?
Because if they didn't have those cups in their hands, their hand would be down by their side, which would give that like brush of the fingers moment.
Yeah.
I love it.
This is the thing though, and Nicola has told us a lot that book fans were going to be really happy with this series. And I think what is important that we remember in terms of the book is that they can adapt the heart of the story and the beats of the story, but in very creative ways. They can put a spin on it. So we might not see each moment correlate exactly how it played out in the books.
Right.
It might be transformed. It might be in a different context. We're going to get all these little nods, hopefully, like this. And again, 302 is very early for this kind of major scene to be taking place. But Nick did say the season was going to be at a fast pace. But it is possible that he does cut his hand in and onto the book, but it's slightly different context. Maybe the tone is slightly different. Also, we have heard you, Smythe Smith musical fans. We know that you're worried that this means the musical isn't going to feature, because this bandaged hand, where Colin was really pissed off that people kept mentioning it, was a part of the Smythe Smith musical. I'd say hold out hope. They might have just moved the order around.
I have hope that this happens, and this is why, because I feel like before they introduce Devlin, we kind of touched on this, I think there will be like a montage of her trying and failing spectacularly, or just at balls or out in society with Colin.
Or them hanging out together.
Yes, so I think we might have like a comical montage where we see the musicale, and like they won't dwell on the scene too much, but it'll be like this really fun nod to the fans, and just like this moment of humor in their montage of her first trying to attract suitors.
And I will leave you with this, because I was looking at his bandage, and obviously it's fabric. I'm thinking, in the book, right, if we're talking about transforming scenes, in the book she gets a piece of paper, right, and she takes a handkerchief out of his pocket. If they don't use his cravat, what has any of this been for? That's all I'm saying. If he does not take his cravat off and get pen to wrap his wound, it's the perfect size for a bandage, that's all I'm saying. Then what are we doing here on Boxing Day? That is my question to all of you. To just like encapsulate our thoughts on this still, because we could have gone back for hours. I think it's beautiful, it's romantic, it's the friendship. What the stills and the recent interviews have really reminded me of is we've talked so much as a fandom and dwelled on the angst of what happened with Polin. And I think what is so beautiful is that their friendship is the core of it, and is what Jess was saying, that friendships have obstacles, and if two people want to overcome it, then they will. And we're going to spend so much time with them as best friends, and that's the core of their story. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful part of their story.
Love it.
I'm excited.
I think episode 2 is going to be up there with one of my all-time favourites. I'm so excited. So those were our Polin treats, although we do have another pen treat later. Just to quickly go through the other stills, of course, we have a still from 304. So we didn't get anything from 303, but we have this still from 304 of Francesca, Hyacinth and Violet standing together, again in the Bridgerton drawing room. Violet looks very perplexed. To be honest, Violet's looking very perplexed in all of these stills. I don't know what her kids are causing for her.
They're putting her through it this season.
That's what happens when you have 8 kids.
Hyacinth also looks a little taken aback.
Yeah, definitely. Francesca looks a little bit startled.
She looks amused.
I have a theory.
You hold on to that theory for just a second. So we have them standing. Now, there have been some great theories about Francesca in this scene, and we will be linking 2 videos from Cat Quinn. You maybe spotted that Francesca is wearing Scottish tweed in this still. And it's so great because obviously the links to the Sterling cousins with their Scottish links. And
okay, maybe my theory isn't so original.
Also, Cat Quinn pointed out that she's wearing a camellia flower, and she pointed out that this was symbolic of sudden death, which, if you know, the tragic foreshadowing for Francesca's story. But what do we think about this?
Some fans have also theorized that Francesca is like fiddling with the ring on her finger because the way she's holding her hands is very interesting. Yeah. She is like touching her ring finger, but you can't see if she has a ring on at the moment.
Beans, what do you think is maybe going on?
My theory is that she's getting proposed to. Like, I think John is coming in to propose to her. I think that's what we're going to get.
Do you know what I'd really like? Because my theory was that Michael was in this scene, and that the reason the other two were perplexed were like, why is Michael here? And the reason that Francesca is amused is because obviously she has a connection with Michael. But I wonder, now you said that about it being a proposal, this could be so way off, but it really reminds me of the scene in the Pride and Prejudice movie.
Yeah.
When Bingley goes to propose to Jane and they have to rehearse it. He rehearses it with, fucking what's his name? Not Rochester.
Darcy.
Thank you. Fucking me. Jesus Christ. And there's this scene where Bingley's really nervous and he rehearses it with Darcy, and then they go in. I wonder if both of them have gone in very suddenly, and then they're making this very like funny proposal, and that's why Violet is taken aback, but Francesca is so enamoured.
Interesting.
I mean, to add on to that, it would be interesting if John and Colin became friends, and Colin was like the Darcy of the situation and helping him, and then they all come in, and Colin's like, "Mother, we've got some important business to attend to," or something. He just says something that's really like funny, and then he comes in, and Violet's like, "Oh my gosh, you're here! What's going on?" And he proposes.
I'd love a chaotic proposal.
Let me present an alternative theory. Okay, so this is episode 4, so we know this is when multiple storylines are probably ramping up, both in terms of Polin, but also probably Francesca and John's relationship. So it could be proposal. However, like, it does look to me like she's fiddling with her ring finger, and almost to me feels like she already has a ring. So I wonder if there's something else potentially happening here. Like, we think that Colin is Chaos Colin potentially at this point. So maybe he enters and he's in a state of chaos. Maybe he comes in and asks, like, how do you know if you're in love or something like that?
Maybe she's just been proposed to and then he's there like, great for you, but actually, Francesca, if you actually look at the press release, it actually says that I'm the lead sibling of season 3. I know that everyone else thinks it's you, but I'm here to remind you.
It's also Francesca's amused expression here, so I feel like it is maybe John is coming in or somebody she knows, but I also feel like they're going to be developing Colin and Francesca's relationship a lot this season, so I feel like she might notice what is going on with Penelope, and she'll know why Colin is so flustered if he comes in during the scene and kind of is just acting, you know, flustered and erratic. If he comes in very erratically, he is asking weird questions and is just behaving strangely, I feel like she might know what's going on, and that might be one reason she's amused if it isn't John.
And that's what Hannah Dodd was saying, is she was excited to get into how she fits within the family and within the bonds that they have. I love that, because we're going to speculate in future crumbs that the John and Francesca wedding takes place possibly in episode 5. So this would time in quite nicely if this is some sort of chaotic engagement, some sort of levity.
I will say, like, good on the casting, because she looks so much like Violet here. It's crazy.
Oh, she does, yeah.
How perfectly she fits in.
Yeah, and she also looks like Hyacinth as well. Like, it's just,
she does,
they did such a good job.
Yeah, she's just a perfect choice, and I know that her story is going to ruin my life 1 year in the decades to come. But lucky, Violet's looking rather perplexed in all these stills. How is she doing?
In the Shondaland article, Ruth Gemmell said, I have a new daughter out in society. I have another daughter who I'm trying to introduce to the idea of it all. And my boys are always ready for me to kind of throw women at them. Then I suppose there are some of my children who are very much in love. And I think there's a part of Violet that is reminded of how much she misses her husband. She's still young and there's still a life out there, but it's kind of a bittersweet realization.
Yeah.
So this sentence about how there are some of her children who are very much in love and how that reminds her of how much she misses her husband, this screams, well, first of all, Cantony. We obviously have Cantony deeply in love this season, but I think there maybe are some Violet Edmund parallels in Polin's relationship, and that this little quote might be teasing that as well. You know, this kind of friends to lovers situation, this romance between a wallflower and a Bridgerton. Violet might be reminded of her own past.
Yeah.
It is that thing of, with many of her children in those differing stages of courtship and love and marriage.
Yeah.
The point that she's going to start realising where Colin's at in his journey, because I like what you said, that maybe Francesca, who's always been very observant but a little bit more reserved, will pick up on things with Colin, having hopefully a closer bond, but whether that will translate to the family being able to pick up on it, and at what point Violet will pick up on and realise that this is a story that she has seen before.
Yeah.
So those are all our 5 stills. And to be honest, when these dropped yesterday, we were already on the floor. We were screaming. We thought we were done with. But we did wonder if there was something else to come. I mean, we thought they'd maybe even filmed something that didn't seem to come to fruition. So we don't know what that was.
Still holding out hope.
We'll touch on that later. But we were still waiting, and we weren't waiting for production to wake up, to be honest, in America, because we thought that these stills had been leaked originally, or not leaked, but uploaded ahead of their official release.
Like released too soon.
Yeah, released too soon, released preemptively. But later on Christmas Day, first of all, Luke Newton posted the 5 stills, and then just about the same time, I got a notification, Bridgerton Netflix had posted on their Twitter account, and we have our first poster of season 3.
Oh, shit.
Lecky had just signed off, but you were like, guys, I'm going to bed.
I had literally just fell asleep.
And I was calling you. I was like, Lecky, wake the fuck back up. You are not permitted to go to sleep right now. And then you woke up and you're like, have we had a clip? And I was like, no, we've got a poster though. I will say that this has been called by Shondaland the debut teaser poster. So this isn't necessarily the poster that we're going to get on the book, A Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This isn't necessarily the flagship poster. This is more of a teaser.
She looks stunning. Look at her, like that red, orangey red lip. She looks so beautiful. Obs, why don't you tell us who you think is in the poster?
I don't think I want to. Beans, you were here for this.
I was.
Okay, so the context. Lecky had gone to sleep. I was down a person. I was down a voice of reason, right? I was on a beach. It was very, very sunny. There was a beam of light shining right on my phone. And so I got this open and I saw it, and I saw the hand, and I saw a bandage, and I was like, oh my God, the poster is Colin holding a mirror with Penelope's face in it. I was voice messaging Beans and I was like, oh my God, look at Colin's hand. And I was like, it's got a very manicured hand. And Beans, what were you saying?
Voice of reason, Beans.
Yeah, I said, babe, that's not his hand. That's Penelope's hand. It's not a bandage, just a fingerless glove.
Yeah,
And you know, I put up a fight and you were like, no. You know nothing.
Exactly.
So it's not Colin's hand. It was always Pen's hand holding a mirror of Pen looking lovely. Sorry, Nick Newton and Nicola Coughlan, for getting your hands mixed up.
The other thing I said, I was like, Luke's hands aren't that small.
So I did reevaluate, and as you were saying, Nikki, we have a hand holding a mirror with a beautiful Penelope looking straight at us, set against an almost teal damask wallpaper.
It does make me wonder if for the next set of episodes, because we get to do that now, if we'll get a little teaser of Colin.
This is what I was wondering. I'm wondering, are we going to get a companion? Are we going to get a Colin version of this?
I bet we are.
It could have like a little compass, Lecky, somehow. I don't know how. But imagine, like, a compass. This isn't going to happen at all. This is just us making shit up as usual. Imagine him, like, it being a compass, and half the compass is pointing north, and then he can see his own reflection.
His reflection in the compass. Kill me. Kill me now.
The tagline is, like, every traveller
Must find his way home. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. That's not going to happen, even slightly.
Well, he'll already be home by that point, unless you're talking about the first set of 4 episodes, in which case, please. Thank you.
Well, the mirror is hugely symbolic in Polin's story. For obvious reasons, reminds me of Mr. Bridgerton. But throughout our rewatch, we did pick up that the mirror was in the show very tied to Penelope's identity.
Yeah.
Identity, dual identities, self-reflection.
Yes, self-reflection. And as spotted by Bibliophilic Spinster, this poster also does seem to be a nod to one of the past Romancing Mr. Bridgerton covers. And the tagline, "Even a wallflower can bloom," is language that we saw way back when they first announced Polinware Season 3 by the Bridgerton Netflix account. They posted on Instagram, and they asked the question, with Penelope's days as a wallflower wearing thin, will she finally take bloom? So that kind of language is carried forward, and now we're seeing it on the poster. Editor's note, I would also like to thank Bibliophilic Spinster, also known as Chaotic Guitar on Twitter, for recently posting about a bedding collection. It looks like this bedding set was released last summer, but it's covered in a lot of the same imagery and phrases that we saw in the Happy Planner journals that were released in November, along with a dance card with the words "no room on my dance card" on it. And this has just sent me spiraling. It just makes us wonder, will there be a time when Penelope rejects a dance from Colin, claiming there is no room on her dance card? Or will there be a time that Colin asks Penelope to dance and learns sadly that there actually is no room on her dance card? At any rate, it's very exciting, and I will share the link in our show notes so you can take a look too.
And Bridgerton posted it with "Every mirror tells a story, and Miss Penelope Featherington's story is one that cannot be missed." So, Veg, how is she looking?
In terms of her costuming, eagle-eyed fans spotted that Penelope is wearing fingerless gloves in the poster. That does remind us of the enchanted Polin footage we received in the This Morning leaks, if you guys remember, way back in Jan this year. So Nicola also appears to be wearing fingerless gloves there. Fans speculated maybe Jen makes them so Pen can write without getting ink on her gloves, which we love that theory. And now she's in charge of her own wardrobe, so could definitely be it.
Yes, I also like that because it also means more hand-to-hand contact, potentially.
And it also reminds me of it's the tiniest allusion to one of the reasons that Colin suspected Eloise. It was like, your fingers are always covered in ink.
Yeah.
And it's like a nice tie into that. But yeah, so that was our first. And you know what? Of all the things I was expecting for Christmas Day, for some reason, it didn't even cross my mind that we'd get a poster. So when this came, I was like completely thrown, because I think we were all holding out for a clip. But as I said earlier, this has been referred to as the debut teaser poster. So we're definitely expecting more to come. And we're hoping for one for Colin. A quick note about Penelope, though, is that in the shondaland article, they introduced her as the diamond of the season.
Yeah.
This could have just been a casual editorial reference as they were writing.
Yeah, I think
they were referring to Nicola Coughlan as well, rather than that being confirmation that the character will be the diamond of the season, who I think we're still betting will be Fran. But incredibly exciting. To be honest, the whole poster thing has thrown me, because it was just so not expected for me.
I didn't expect it. I went to sleep. I thought we were done.
There we go. 5 new stills. This just comes off the back of our other Penelope still. So 5 new stills and our poster. In terms of cast reactions, it was so exciting. Nick and Newt shared this. Many cast members shared as well. Nicola says, "Merry Christmas" from this former wallflower. And on Luke's post, she said, "Hello, Mr. B," which everyone loved. And then Shonda made a comment as well. And she said that 3 words to describe the season were swoon, passion, and scandal. So watch out for that. Nicola said in the Shondaland article that about how this was their third year of the show and she knew the workload was going to be crazy, but she says, I think you do sometimes feel the weight of it. You go, oh man, this show is huge. It's got a huge fandom behind it, and you do feel a bit like the captain of the ship and you want to lead it the best you can. It's all consuming in a way it's never been before, and I think we can all say that we couldn't have ever asked for two better captains than Nick and Newt.
100%.
They have been phenomenal from start to finish.
Love them. Yeah.
And we're so grateful. Believers, it has been so appreciated by the fandom. And speaking of the other captain of the ship, Luke Newton, he said that after the success of season 2, they were really excited to get back to work. I know there are people who have supported the Polin relationship since day one, so I'm excited for them to finally get what they've been waiting for. And you know what? Nick and Newt, we cannot wait to see you guys shine.
He also said, last April, you are not ready? And I'm starting to believe I
believe you.
Because every time we receive something new, I lose my mind.
But there was a final little cast crumb, wasn't there, Lecky?
Yes.
I think we picked up on, I think many of the fans have noticed it as well, is that Hannah New, who's going to be playing the mysterious Lady Tilly Arnold, posted her little Christmas message on Instagram. But interestingly, she tagged Nicola, she tagged Luke, but the other cast member that she tagged or hashtagged was Luke Thompson. She mentioned several other directors, she mentioned choreographer Jack Murphy, hair and makeup artist Erica Ockfist, but this is the only other Bridgerton cast member she mentioned. What do we think that means?
Yeah, so this to me confirms that I think she is Benedict's love interest this season, because why else would she call attention just to that one specific cast member?
Who called it? Who called it?
Beans.
So it looks like Lady Tilly Arnold is going to be causing quite a stir, and we've been theorising about this, and I think we will continue. But I think what you were saying, Lecky, we were having a chat yesterday about how maybe if Benedict gets caught up in scandal, could this be an inciting incident that brings Eloise back to Penelope? Eloise loves Benedict more than anyone. She is closest to him, and if he is embroiled in a scandal, maybe this will be an inciting incident that is going to send Eloise asking for help and learning the lesson of sometimes when someone you love is in trouble, you have to make difficult decisions. Beans, I think this touches on something you've been raising for quite a few weeks about how Benedict has been slowly, without really realising it, getting himself entangled more and more in the world of the Ton, but he hasn't yet been burnt by it. And this could be the season where he's finally burnt by his actions, instead of this aimless wandering that we've seen from him.
Or some people speculate that also that Lady Tilly is a villainous figure, so he could also be burned by love.
Yes.
That could set him up for his season to make him distrustful of romantic relationships.
Like the legacy that Sienna and Marina both had on the Bridgerton brothers.
Yeah.
But I think those were the main crumbs. As I said, it's Boxing Day. Who knows what's going to come in the next few days? But wow, any final thoughts about what we've had?
I guess what shocked me the most was just how fast this season is. We've already talked about how fast we thought this season was going to go, but seeing these pictures, seeing them at the ball together, and seeing his bandage hand, like if that scene from the book, it just seems like the first 2 episodes are going to go so fast. They're going to move so quickly. And also, I just can't believe that we're going to get that much Polin in one episode. We've had 21 minutes of screen time, and I can't believe we're getting so many Polin scenes.
We could eclipse that within one episode, couldn't we?
Yes.
I think I'm just mostly very excited for Luke and Nicola, honestly. Like, this is really going to be an incredible time for them to shine. And as Nicola said, like, she was filming 2 shows at one point, Bridgerton and Big Mood and everything. And I'm just excited for where it's going to take their careers next, because I think Nicola has had a huge boost because of Bridgerton as well. She's gotten a lot, and I'm excied to see that for Luke too, and excited to see how much he gets to play with his character as well. And I'm excited for everybody. I'm excited to see again how Anthony is, because I think that they're gonna really be a lot of fun, and it'll be nice to actually see, you know, where these in previous seasons interact with people and get to have that happy ending and still be part of the show, because we really didn't get that from season 1 to season 2, and I think it was just missing that aspect. And it'll be so nice to like see that, because I think Anthony's going to end up being a lot more playful because he's a lot more chilled out.
Out of all the stills we got yesterday and the poster, what's your favourite? Which has stuck with you the most?
We know that I'm like obsessed with the waistcoat, so like
you're on Unicolin.
I would like to buy it from them. Thank you.
I think I voted for Unicolin in the sub poll, but my favorite still is the Australia Polin.
Yeah, I do like seeing them together.
I think I can narrow it down just to the bandage. Seeing a detail like that come to life is so surreal, and it's so exciting. And the Australia still would have been beautiful regardless, but that kind of detail just means the world to Polin fans, I think.
Yeah.
So, a couple of questions for you. Do you think we're going to get something in the coming weeks? And we've had so much information recently. Do you think this is going to go into a lull to carry us through?
I'm not going to hold out hope, but I don't know why else they would have brought in a crew to film something the week before Christmas if we weren't going to get something soon, unless they were going to introduce these stills, and for some reason they decided not to do that anymore after they were kind of like released early. But I feel like we're going to get something soon, maybe New Year's. I just don't know why else they would bring in a crew.
I think it's New Year's or Valentine's Day. We've received so much as well, though, so I'd be happy if this is what we're going to get to carry us through. I wonder if we're going to get a similar Valentine's Day event like we did with Queen Charlotte last year, where we maybe that first clip has still eluded us, hasn't it? But we'll get it in the end. What do you hope that we're going to get next? If you could have a wish for anything that you'd want next, is there a particular still that you're wanting? Are you after the clip? Do you want the Colin poster?
Give us the clip. God damn.
I want footage of Nick and Newts, whether it's a clip from season 3 or just them on screen together, because I've been seeing them on screen together. But it would be nice to have a clip to edit with.
Yeah, even just like a promo video.
I want a clip, and I think originally my wish for a clip would have been like the moment that she rejected him or something. And you know what? After all we've had, I just want to see them playfully together.
Oh,
It's been a very exciting few weeks. Like I said, I've had the release date, the new branding, 6 new stills, the lengthy EW interview, and even a poster. What's been the most exciting thing to you, or what took you most by surprise? We talked about the nuggets that we got last week in the interview. Is there something that's got you really, really excited?
barely remember the article from last week now. In the haze of these new stills, I'm going to have to say probably these pictures, because there's so many details that we've read into this. We've figured out what balls they were, what episodes they're from. This drop was so exciting.
And just a final question. 2023 has been quite the year. We never got the clip, but we did get a lot of Polin sightings this year, either through official stills or through set leaks. Before we go, of all the pens and all the Collins we've seen this year, which have been your favourite?
Oh, okay. 2023. Okay, for me, I'm gonna go Austerley-Collin and Enchanted Pen. And this is something we didn't touch on in our episode, sorry, but we speculated earlier while we were chatting. We were also talking about how in the Austerley picture, Pen's bust line isn't as low as it is in the Enchanted Pen picture. So I feel like her bust line lowers and her dresses become just a little more sensual and sexy as their relationship progresses through the season as well. Sorry.
You know what, Lecky? I think I'm on exactly the same. I think I'm going Austerley-Collin. You know what? I'm going to have Unicolin with the bandage and Enchanted Pen. Those are my icons of 2023.
Unicolin doesn't have the bandage.
I know, but if I could just pick...
you're photoshopping the bandage onto Unicolin's hand.
I want Unicolin's expression with Austerley-Collin's bandage, and in the background on the coat hook, I want that jacket from the Tudum still.
Oh, yeah. The brown leather jacket?
No, the teal jacket.
Oh, Moonlight Pollen jacket.
Yeah, I want that jacket.
Dear
in the background.
God. You're just drawing from everything.
I mean, for Pollen together, it's Moonlight Pollen, where they're like really close.
Yeah.
I think that was the one that like floored the fandom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Enchanted Pen and Unicolin.
It's been a long old year, but we were spoiled in the end. What a time we've had. Enchanted, Wedding, Pixel, Times Square, Window, Market, so many. What way to end 2023. And as long as we don't get any other emergencies or New Year's, and you know what, as long as we don't get another bloody sex plotline article dropping at near midnight on New Year's Eve, that's a story for another day. This will be the last emergency episode you hear from us. I will say that we do already have another episode recorded and almost edited that we originally planned to release over the Christmas period. It's now hilariously outdated.
Truly.
Yeah.
I think what we're going to do, we did work on it though, so we will be publishing that maybe next week. That's what you'll hear from us next. We have to preface it by saying it's almost redundant at this point because it's so old and we answer our own questions, but we'll share it regardless. But until we see you again, Lecky, where can everyone find us?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
And Beans, can you do us the honours and see us out for this emergency episode?
Hopefully for the year.
Das violin. Do 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 do.
A Polin podcast.